Hi guys, Mimi here. Welcome back to my channel. I also just finished filming a tote bag to go with the zip up pouch that I just recently posted and you can find on my channel. I love this little bag. I saw it, I think originally on Anthropology, and it was adorable, but they wanted a lot of money for it, and I was like, I can make this. So it's super cute, it's super easy. Let me show you. It's this little ruffled tote bag. She's so cute. You can make this in any size really that you want, but the dimensions for this particular one are in the description box below. There's a link to a PDF that is going to give you all the tools and supplies you need, the dimensions you need to cut for everything. And I'm really excited about it because it's adorable. It fits my laptop perfectly, which I love because sometimes I don't want to have to carry like my big backpack if I'm just carrying my laptop and maybe a notepad. And then I use my zip up pouch to carry my pens, my hard drive, and all sorts of little things. So I'm really excited about this project. So let's get started. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and cover the pieces you should have cut. Now, all of the information on what you need to cut, how many pieces you need to cut, the size you need to cut is all included in the PDF pattern. The link is in the description box below. I'm just gonna run through it right now. So you're gonna cut 2 pieces of your main fabric. You're going to cut them the oversized size that is listed, and then after quilting it, we're going to cut it down to size. I found that it's super helpful to have a larger piece to quilt and then cut it down a bit to measure the exact size of the bag. I just found that my fabric shifted a little bit. I am no quilter, so I just found that to be easier. So those measurements, again, are in that PDF that you guys have linked in the description box. I am using a linen and it's pretty lightweight, so I chose to interface my fabric. If you're using something like a canvas or a pre-quilted fabric or even 100% quilting cotton, you probably don't need to interface it. I just like that it gave my linen a little more structure and I think it needed it, so I went ahead and did that. If you're going to interface, then you're going to cut 2 pieces of your main fabric. You're going to cut 2 pieces of your interfacing, and you're also going to cut 2 pieces of batting, okay? Now, I'm using a rather thin batting. I didn't want it to be too thick, but that really is up to you. You could use 2 layers of batting if you so wish. I have already quilted and cut down one of my tote pieces. Obviously, we need a front and a back. So you probably can't tell, right? Because I've used the same color as my fabric, but if I turn it around, you can see the quilting lines. I used the lines on my fabric as a guide, and I just did straight up and down lines. You can quilt this however you want. I mean, you can make diamonds, you can just do diagonal lines, you can do what I did. If you don't have a fabric, obviously, that has a guide, like this already has lines, then you could use your ruler and a chalk roller and give yourself a guide of those lines, however wide you want them apart, so you have something to follow at the machine. I'll show you just a really quick clip of me just doing the lines. You are going to take your fabric right side facing up, wrong side facing your batting. And this is, of course, after you have interfaced it. And you're just going to go ahead and do your quilting. So whatever that is going to be, lines up and down, diagonal, diamonds, whatever you wish. After you've done that and have quilted it, we're going to cut it to size. Okay, so once you have your pieces quilted, you're also going to need 2 pieces of lining. Now, I've cut my lining the size of the finished bag, right? Not the oversized bag. So I just used my quilted cut down piece to cut my lining pieces. So you're going to cut 2 of those. Then you're also going to need the ruffle. So the ruffle is optional. Like if you don't want to add the ruffle around the side, bottom, and other side of the bag, that's totally okay. But if you do, you're going to need to cut 2 very long pieces. The measurements are in your PDF. Now this is going to be a rather small ruffle that I'm going to add. If you wanted, let's say, a bigger ruffle, then you would just make this piece wider, okay? The same length though, and the way that I came about it is basically I just measured like around the bag loosely And then I did times 1.5, but that's again in your PDF, and you're gonna need to cut 2 of those. Then you're gonna need to cut 2 pieces for your handle. The measurements are again also in your PDF. And I went ahead and interfaced mine because I wanted my straps to have a little bit of weight, not too much. And so you're gonna need 2 of these. So this one, like I said, I already cut down to size. It's quilted. This is the one we just quilted. So I'm gonna literally use this as my guide. I'm just gonna place it over the top and I'm gonna cut around. So I'm gonna grab my ruler and I'm gonna grab my rotary cutter and I'm just gonna place it along the edge of the already cut one and then just trim around. Okay, perfect. Now we have both our front and our back for our tote. So if you wanna add, let's say a name tag or a gift tag or something, you could probably do it here towards the top. That's where I'm gonna put mine. So I'm just gonna fold this in half so I can find the center. Let me just put a little pin right there. Now we're gonna be using we're gonna be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I wanna make sure that I place it obviously below that, but also maybe a little further down just for interest. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin. Okay, now you would head to your sewing machine and you're just gonna stitch around whatever tag you choose to add. Okay, so I have my tag stitched down. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to create our ruffle because we need to attach it to the front of our bag. So we're gonna go ahead, set this aside for just a sec. And I want you to grab those 2 really long pieces that we have, okay? This is probably the most tedious part of the entire bag. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead and join both of them along one short end. I want you to go ahead and stitch this using a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then press your seam open. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and press my seam open. And now on the other short end, and make sure that you're folding right sides facing, okay? We're gonna close out one end here and then we're gonna close out the other end here, all right? So you wanna make sure that you pay attention to your seam, okay? You wanna make sure that you're looking at the right side. The seam is in the back, and then find the other end, right sides facing. We're gonna stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then I want you to turn your fabric and that corner right side out. Okay, so I have gone ahead and turned the corners out on the other short ends, and now we're gonna press this in half. I'm gonna continue until you have the entire thing folded and pressed in half. Okay, so you might notice that I went ahead and serged the raw edge. So the reason I did that is because my linen frays so much. And after we do the 2 rows of gathering stitches and I start pulling and gathering, I'm gonna end up with a big mess of threads up top, and well, that's annoying. So I went ahead and serged. You're not gonna see this anyway because it's sandwiched between the bag and the lining, and I mean the seam. So what I'm gonna do now is we have this middle seam where we joined these 2 long pieces together. Here's my seam here. So what I like to do is I create 2 rows of gathering stitches starting at one end and ending at that seam, okay? And then I'm gonna start another 2 rows of gathering stitches from the seam in the other direction. That way I can just pull half of it at one time instead of trying to pull this entire thing, which is also gonna be annoying. So I prefer to do it one half and then the other half. So let's go ahead and do that at the machine now. We're gonna go ahead and do the first line of gathering stitches a 1/2 inch from the edge, and then you're gonna do the second row of gathering stitches a 1/4 inch from inside the seam, right? So a 1/4 inch and then a 1/4 inch. Okay, so you see we have this ginormous piece here. We're gonna go ahead and start gathering. So I'm gonna find the middle, right, where we had our seam. Let me separate these. And we're just gonna go ahead and start gathering, pulling, Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna gather one side, right? And you know where that seam in the middle is. Let me find mine. Okay, there we go. And what you're gonna do is you're going to place the seam in the middle, and then you're just gonna lightly sort of measure all the way around. You want your ruffle to stop at about a 1/2 inch or just below that, right? Because we're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I want my ruffle to end at least maybe 5/8 of an inch, just so it's not right up against that 1/2 inch seam allowance, maybe 5/8 of an inch down. So once you have that gathered, then you can go ahead and start on the other side, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to gather until it measures the very top, 5/8 from the top. And then once we've done that with the gathering, we can go ahead, pin it in place, and then stitch our back. Okay, so now that we have it gathered, we're going to go ahead, find that center. Now you want your ruffle to be towards your bag, right? And we're going to go ahead and pin or use your little clips. And we're going to go ahead and pin all the way around. I'm going to loosen some of the gathering just around the corner. And I'm going to clip. Okay, and making sure you're stopping like 5/8 of an inch from the top. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now that we have it clipped all the way around, we can go ahead and base this in place. So we're just going to stitch it down along the edge so that when we attach our back piece, nothing shifts. Okay, so we just want to baste it down first. Okay, so now that we have our ruffle in place, we're going to go ahead and stop for a second so we can do our ties and or our handles, I should say, and we need to finish these so we can attach them to the front and back before we attach front to back. So I have already done one here, okay, as you can see. What you're going to do is you're going to, let me set this aside for a sec. You're going to go ahead, grab your tie, you're going to fold it right sides facing, and we're going to stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to turn this right side out. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off just a tiny bit. And we're going to go ahead and turn this right side out. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and give this a good press. Okay, and then just like I did this one, you're going to go ahead and stitch about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I just did a little top stitching. You're going to go ahead and do the same thing for this one. Okay, now that we have our handles, what you're going to do is you're going to place them, okay, and then see if you sort of like the length. Maybe you want them, I don't know, maybe a little shorter. Maybe you want them a little longer. It really just depends on your personal preference. Just make sure that when you're attaching them, that you are attaching them with the handles facing down and the edge here, right? Because it's going to turn up like this. So what I like to do is I'm going to, again, fold this in half so I can find my center. Okay, so I know that that's my center. And then I'm probably just going to space them. Let's see how much that is. So I would say about 3 inches from the edge. So that's where I'm comfortable placing mine. Go ahead and clip that. And then you'll do the same amount on the other side. And that's about right. Okay, take a look, see if you like that. Actually, I'm going to bring mine in a little bit more. Okay, so that's about 3.5. That's sort of what I like. We're going to place it here. You're going to place your other handles on your back piece the same exact way. So the easiest way to do that, honestly, is just to lay it over the top, place it exactly where the other one is. Okay, so once you have them sort of clipped in or pinned, you're gonna go ahead to your sewing machine and just stitch across, okay, just to secure them in place. Okay, now that we have our handles in place, we're gonna go ahead and grab our back with right sides facing. We're gonna go ahead and clip or pin, whichever you're doing. Okay, now we're gonna head to the sewing machine, and using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch all the way around the bag, of course, leaving the top open. Okay, you can go ahead and cut into your corners. Okay, you can go ahead and turn this right side out. Ooh, she's so cute. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and put together our lining so that we can finish up our bag. All right, so we have our lining pieces. So this is gonna be very simple. All we're gonna do is pin around. We're gonna leave an opening at the side seam, maybe about, I don't know, about 4 inches. And then we can go ahead and pin all the way around. Okay, so now using your 1/2 inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch along one entire side, along the entire bottom, and then we're going to stop and start here, and then I should say we should stop here, break your thread, leaving this open, and then start again here to the top. This opening is what we're gonna turn our bag right side out with. So head to your sewing machine, and again, we're just gonna stitch around, leaving an opening using 1/2 inch seam allowances. Okay, now you're gonna go ahead and grab your lining, and you're going to slip your bag inside. Okay, right sides should be facing each other. Handles should be to the inside. I'm gonna first match up my side seams. Okay, I'm gonna clip. Then I'm gonna match up my other side seam, and then just continue clipping around the entire top. Okay, now we're gonna head to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch all the way around using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, now using this side opening here, we're gonna go ahead and pull our tote bag out. And while we have it out, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and close this opening, okay? So you wanna just fold in that seam allowance, put a couple of pins there, and now you can go ahead to your sewing machine and just edge stitch this closed. Okay, now you can go ahead and pull your lining to the inside, push, push, push out those corners. And then let's go ahead and give this a little press. Okay, you could give her like one last little press. Okay, once you're done pressing, you are all done with this adorable little tote bag. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for the ruffled tote bag. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and make sure to follow me on Instagram at MimiGStyle. I love to see all of your amazing makes. Until next time, peace.